You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how harsh or complicated it may be. This is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
And welcome to episode 276 of Spreaker Sunday, the weekend review edition of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast here. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Frank Vajcner, once again, filling in for Ed Smith, who is still out due to private personal reasons, but he's almost to the home stretch of that. So, luckily, he'll be back sometime soon enough. Man, everybody misses Ed Smith, but Frank Vajcner's got our backs. You can follow Frank Vajcner at Frank_Vajcner, Vajcner. He's also the host of the co-host of WXUT 88.3 FM in Toledo's After Further Review every Friday and Saturday late morning to afternoon. Frank, how are we doing tonight?
Been a busy last couple of days between having to go to a wedding in Plymouth on Friday, work a baseball showcase yesterday, and work today, but the only thing I got to look forward to this week is my birthday.
Yep. So, got a full plate tonight. Got a lot of Tigers to talk about. Got a lot of Tigers to talk about. Also, a little bit of Lions and Michigan Wolverines football and Red Wings hockey, but also plenty of Pistons basketball to discuss. But first off, it's still summertime. Let's get Tigers out of the way first.
That one is long gone.
So before we get to the weekend review, we right after we went off the Spreaker airwaves on episode 275, we realized that the trade was now official as the Tigers sent closing pitcher Justin Wilson and catcher Alex Avila to the defending world champion Chicago Cubs for prospects Jeimer, Candelario, and Isaac Paredes. And that made Shane Green the new closer for the Tigers, according to manager Brad Ausmus, the Mimbo imbecile. And before we graded that before that, we graded Al Avila waiting until the trade deadline. You graded it an A. I graded it a B+. But this is a trade that we're going to have to wait until the what's your grade segment at the very end. So Jeimer, Candelario, and Isaac Paredes. I'm pretty sure you've done some of the homework on these two prospects. Candelario, I believe, was prospect number 92 going into the midseason, wasn't it? As far as I can try to recall.
Yeah, and I believe that is also, it was either according to Keith Law or Baseball America. So I mean, and those are the two best reliable sources for ranking baseball prospects. I mean, granted, I thought the return could have been better, but I guess Candelario could be making an appearance with Detroit this week, as I believe Jose Iglesias is going to be away from the team for a few days. I guess he was going on bereavement. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what he can bring to the table while playing in the middle infield. Paredes, I guess, is a little bit more on the younger side. And I think he might still be in Double A I don't think he's been brought up to Toledo just yet. So I'm still kind of waiting to see what he can do, who as well. So I guess that this trade, was a lot more of a mixed review than the trade with the Diamondbacks, which seemingly nobody really liked. But this one, some thought it was good, some thought no, you probably could have found a different trade partner. But I guess in the end, hindsight is 2020. I mean, yeah, we all like to evaluate trades when they happen and see who comes out a winner. But I guess that you got better than what you got from Arizona. There's no denying that.
Of course. The Arizona trade, the Tigers got 3 prospects, not even nearly in the top 100. But the trade with the Cubs, at least one of them was in the top 100. So that's a little bit better. Still could have been better, but still better than the Arizona trade. That's the truth about this trade. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I believe from the Arizona trade, I want to say that Dewal Lugo has been brought up to Toledo, and I believe he'd actually been doing pretty well there. So who knows? Maybe the change of scenery may have helped him a little bit. I mean, only time will tell. I mean, who knows? He could really break out in a new environment and start raking, but then again, it could just be a flash in the pan.
We'll have to see what happens. So, that being said, the Tigers go into New York, the Bronx, not the Big Apple, but the Bronx. The Big Apple's for the New York Mets. The Bronx is for the Yankees. The Tigers go to Yankee Stadium and take 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. They lose the first game 7-2, like we expected and wanted to, but they win 4-3 and 2-0 to take 2 of 3 from the New York Yankees, who had been slumping until they won the last 2 in Cleveland, admittedly. And then the Tigers win the first 2 at the Baltimore Orioles at Camden Yards, including Friday's game 5-2 on Upton's game-winning grand slam. He hit another grand slam, hit another home run Saturday in a 5-2 loss, and then the Tigers got pounded 12-3. Anibal Sanchez gets rocked again. 8 earned runs, 10 hits, 3 innings pitched. That's the bad Anibal Sanchez right there.
Well, that's the Anibal Sanchez we all know who owe and love.
Oh, yeah.
Heavily, so I guess people say, oh, Sanchez is back, he's pitching well, and then he goes up and completely shits his pants.
Yeah, of course. A lot of fanboys would say when Anibal Sanchez performs poorly, very, very poorly statistically, they jinxed him.
Well, oh, jinx, schminks. If you believe in jinxes, you might as well believe in leprechauns and unicorns.
And delusions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think Grant, you and I were probably all thinking that they'd get swept by Baltimore.
Pal? Can't a guy get a bit of sleep? Don't bug me.
Split. So, I'm gonna have to pull up MLB at bat and see who
I got all the information already. The Tigers are 51-59, 8.5 games back of first place in the American League Comedy Central, and 5.5 games still of the 5.5 games back of the second AL wildcard spot. But they are the third worst team in the American League, and because there are 8 teams ahead of Detroit chasing the New York Yankees and the Kansas City Royals. The Royals last time were leading the Mariners 9-1, at Kauffman Stadium in the bottom of the seventh, like a couple hours ago. It looks like the Royals had that one pretty much wrapped up.
I'm checking the score on that right now. Actually, the Mariners won that game 8-7.
Oh, wow! Was that today? Really?
Yeah, that was today. It was Seattle scored 7 runs in the first 2 innings, and I guess Kansas City mounted a bit of a charge, but
8-7.
They got shut down.
I thought I read 9-1 there. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe there was a doubleheader.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It was a doubleheader.
Yeah, that game 1, Mariners 8, Royals 7, and then the Royals 9, Mariners 1, game 2. That was the game that was the game that was going live a couple hours ago when I saw it being 9-1 in the 7th inning, the bottom of the 7th. The Royals had 2 men on and 1 out, and they were just trying to pour it on. They couldn't, but they didn't need to anyway. That game was out of reach. So the Mariners jump ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays by a half game for that second wild card spot. So I was actually spot on for that one.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I talked a little bit with Derek on when we had to record for AFR on Friday, and I said that the Tigers had to jump like 8 teams in order to sniff the wild card, because they're behind Tampa, Seattle, Baltimore, who they really didn't gain any ground on in this 4-game series. The Angels, they still behind Minnesota, and then Rangers and Toronto. I mean, I guess really no.
Talk about stacking the deck.
I guess, because everybody outside of the White Sox is within 10 games of the wild card, which, making up the deficit it's not impossible, but let's be real here. The only way it happens is if everybody ahead of you completely just loses it and doesn't forgets how to play the game right, and then you end up jumping them, which won't happen. And I believe that the White Sox were the only American League team. I think the White Sox were the only American League team that I saw was taken off the board in terms of World Series odds, according to Sportsbook Las Vegas. The others were Philly and San Francisco, and I believe Cincinnati and possibly San Diego, and the Mets might also be off there as well.
Yeah. Thing is, though, the Tigers, strangely, considering the fact that they are the third worst team in the American League, that they're still 5.5 games back of that second wild card spot. They're actually still they're strangely still in it, because a lot of team. This is like an average Joe's race for that wild card spot.
Yeah, because you look at the teams that right now who are still looking for that wild card, and
most of them are below 500.
Yeah. Only the Rays and Mariners are the only teams that are above 500, because Baltimore is below 500, LA is below 500, Minnesota is below 500, Texas is below 500, Toronto and the Tigers are, and even Oakland at 8 games back, they're below 500. But I'd say they're about the only last team that has a mathematical chance at getting the wild card, but I don't foresee that happening.
No, probably not. My point about this whole close race is the closer the Tigers get, the more convinced Avila would think that Brad Ausmus has done a better job than we think, which is actually not even true. And it's just the same thing over and over again. Avila has been a dumbass. So has Brad Ausmus. They've been hanging on to this old rhetoric that the Tigers have to keep contending for the postseason. They're not even built to. With Osmus, they're not even built to make the postseason. They never were, even though they reached it in 2014 by winning the American League Central. Strangely, clinching that on the very last game of the season, 162 against the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, and also I mentioned this on AFR. I said that because oddly enough, we recorded on the 2-year anniversary where Dave Dombrowski was fired and Avila was promoted to GM, and it wasn't a move that I was a big fan of to begin with. And people are saying, "Oh, well, he's gonna get them into the modern era of baseball. We're gonna start using sabermetrics more," and that was a lie that everybody believed. I mean, Avila just tried to keep things the same way. He wasn't going to do anything different, but again, he sold that to everybody. I mean, it's kind of like we've said in AFR. Why tell the truth when the lie is more entertaining? Well, 2 years later, we've seen Avila told an entertaining lie because we thought we were going to see the modern era of baseball brought here, things done the right way, and it never happened.
Right, because they failed to win the World Series over and over and over again every year since that era. Not only since that era began, but the Tigers still haven't won a World Series since the year I was born, 1984. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's the cherry on top of the sundae right there.
Yeah, and of course they haven't even managed to win one in my lifetime, and I'm going to be entering the last year of my 20s on Thursday.
Yeah, and I'm already 33 years old. I still have a few more years left until I reach my 40s, if you know what I mean. But that being said, Michael Fulmer was placed on the 10-day DL with ankle ulnar neuritis. Tigers. This is just another injury excuse that Avila can use, like Ryan Schilling pointed out several times last year on his show, the Schilling Report on the Team 92 on FM in Lansing, WQTX, over there, Division of Midwest Communications and Spotlight Productions. But at least Schilling tried to point that out. Avila didn't even make it an excuse. He just kept saying Brad Osmus has done a great job, and he didn't say anything further after last year when they failed to make. When they just failed, they just fell just short of making the postseason by one game when they should have tanked. This is a chance for them to tank right now, and tanking does make a difference. I'm not sure if Sports on Tap radio is hearing me or not, but tanking makes a difference. Chris Ilitch can lose money. They say he's not going to. Man, they're not thinking clearly. You lose games, you lose money. That makes Chris Ilitch that makes Chris Ilitch forces Chris Ilitch to sell the team sooner than we expect, which we'll take.
Yeah, and even Justin Spiro brought it up. I mean, Chris Ilitch wants nothing to do with the Tigers. He just seemingly leaving them alone. Oh, he wants nothing to do with them, and I think if he sells them sooner, he's going to get a better profit. I mean, he'll get up for the Tigers. He could get, I forget what they were valued at. I know he'll pocket at least, he'll end up bringing in at least $1.5 billion. I mean, could be closer to $2 billion.
Let me dig up the article again.
Yeah, I believe it was the first article ever posted on Spiro Avenue by our good friend, Mr. Justin Spiro, who you can follow on Twitter at Darko State News, and also I want to commend him for a great discussion that he had with Tony Paul, the Detroit News, on his most recent Spiro Avenue podcast.
Said $10 million pledge to aid Flint relief. Marlins are rejected at 1 point. The Tigers were assessed a value of $1.2 billion of April of this year. Conversely, so that's what it says in the section. What about the Red Wings? In the fourth paragraph, the Red Wings were assessed a value of $625 million by the publication in November 2016. According to Forbes, the Tigers lost money for the sixth time in 9 years during the 2016 campaign. That's key to Ilitch wanting to sell the Tigers to any owner. It could be Tom Gores, even though he's not the highest bidder.
Yeah, but I think again, just to refresh everybody's memory, I think the reason why Gores could be a buyer is because Chris Ilitch wants to have somebody who's going to keep the team there, and he doesn't want to sell to anybody who, let's say, had shady deals with the Bush family in the 90s.
And you can only hope that Tom Gores does mean more business than Chris Ilitch. Tom Gores does mean some business with the Pistons. He's trying to get the Pistons back into the postseason, trying to make them have a deeper run. They just got to trade Andre Drummond first, and we'll get to the Drummond stuff later on in this episode. So I was going to mention the Tigers go to Pittsburgh for a 4-game home-and-home set. They go to PNC Park for 2 games with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and then the Pirates come to Comerica Park for 2 games, and then the Twins come to Comerica Park for 3 games. So hopefully we can raise the Jolly Roger. And then those pesky Twins, we can use that rhetoric as part of our tanking process.
Yeah. So because I looked at the standings, and I believe that I want to say that the Pirates were within 5 games. I want to say of the wild card, or actually they may have been pretty close in the NL Central as well. I'm going to pull up the standings real quick. I guess it'll load. And plus I know the Twins they've kind of petered out. I know they were playing fairly decent earlier in the year, and now they've just kind of gone, standings loaded. Right now the Twins are 6 games back of the division. In the wild card, they are 3.5 out. And as for the Pirates, they are 9 games out of the wild card, but in the NL Central, they are 4.5 back of the Cubs. So I guess, and the only team that's really out of it in the NL Central is the Reds. They're 13.5 out.
It's kind of like the NL Comedy Central, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I guess both the AL and the NL Central are appropriately named the AL and NL Comedy Centrals.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the standings, you can tell why. So, Justin Verlander was placed on revocable trade waivers, and then he clears them. It's likely that Verlander is going to stay after the trade waiver deadline. Again, they pay him too much money. Nope, nobody can afford it, even though they wanted him. And some might too. Yeah.
Well, I think that it could be next trade deadline where he gets moved because he's got 2 years left in his contract, and at the deadline next year he'll have one full season remaining. Because that's kind of how the Tigers ended up with David Price, is they had him and they had another year with him when they acquired him. So I think it's possibly more likely that Verlander gets traded in that way. But again, that's about a year away, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep. And then we got Nick Castellanos. Got an article from the Detroit Free Press. Nick Castellanos was open to saying he was open to playing any position if it makes the Tigers better. I'm not going to waste any time reading it. It won't. I'll tell you this, it won't. He's still got to keep making a lot of errors whichever position he plays. Castellanos says he just cares about the Tigers winning, but we care more about their future than that. It's that simple. It's not going to improve the Tigers at all. It's not going to make it worse, but it's not going to improve it.
Yeah. I mean, we've already seen him play outfield and how much of a disaster that was. What other position is he going to play? People say, oh, he can play first base. No. If he can't field a ball cleanly, how are you going to expect him to play first base? I mean, look, I know Miguel Cabrera was able to shift to that position and just fine. But he did it because he had to, because he was slowing down. And there was also a time where he had to go back to third base when Prince Fielder was signed. The thing is, Cabby, he worked. I give him all the credit in the world for this. Is he actually went and he busted his ass and got himself into shape. And to me, Castellanos is nowhere near as committed to that. So the only way he's gonna make it anywhere is probably if he gets let go. Because you've already got a logjam of guys who are supposedly could play third base with Candelario and Lugo and everybody else who you've acquired via trade. And just leaving Castellanos there is just going to keep it blocked, and you move him to first base. I mean, you really want to do that and have Miguel Cabrera just DH and not have him in National League parks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whichever team he plays, whether it be American or National League, he cannot improve unless he starts fielding the ball cleanlier and committing less throwing errors, throwing more accurately. That's part of the game of baseball. There's nothing else to it.
You're absolutely right.
So that's Tigers talk. Now we transition to pro football and the Lions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
There has been a significant gap between contract extensions and the Lions and Matthew Stafford. And there was an article here. Matthew Stafford. That was from Bleacher Report. From Timothy Rapp back on August 1st, the very first day of this month, he's reporting he's actively talking, quote unquote, with the team about a contract extension, but a substantial gap remains between the sides, according to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network on Tuesday. Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press believes the Lions had better be prepared to pay Stafford major money in these negotiations. Dave Burkett on Twitter at Dave Burkett. We can quibble on the numbers a little bit, but the bottom line is the Lions have to pay Matthew Stafford to get this thing done. The truth is, Stafford took a discount on his last contract. Those are his two tweets right there. Stafford, there are his numbers. Stafford isn't letting any contract impasses affect him. So there's this quote: "There's no difference to me as far as my preparation. He cares about helping his team win, this and that, just the same old routine stuff." The last paragraph, though, says, "It's hard to imagine the two sides won't agree on a lucrative contract extension for Stafford. It is possible that they will agree, of course. With the exception of the Kirk Cousins situation in Washington, teams generally lock up their franchise quarterbacks for the long haul." So that caps the water bottle on that one.
And this is something else that I talked with Derek about at AFR. This is something that it's gonna have to get done, but I really think they're kind of waiting to see how the Kirk Cousins situation plays out. And I think what we're gonna see is, Stafford knows that he'll be able to make more money doing this. Is just signing a franchise tag, and he'll get probably somewhere $30 million or more for next year, and because he knows that's how he can play the system. But again, it's still something that's interesting to watch. But I think really it's going to come down to how does the Cousins situation shake out.
Everybody is going to have to wait and see on that one. Still a wait and see approach, but we're pretty sure the Lions and Stafford are going to get a contract extension done sometime down the road. So there's that. Other thing I want to mention here, the Lions training camp continues. They did drills of wide receiving, and I heard on Twitter very early this morning, that there have been a lot of dropped passes by the wide receivers. There we go. Oh, biggest Lion, Nate Atkins at Nate Atkins _ Wait a minute. That's the wrong tweet. Let's see here. Oh wait. Nate Atkins. TJ Jones dropped a wide open pass. It's looking more and more to me like Billingsley and Abradaris are ahead of him in this race. So this is a situation where the Lions have to make a tough decision with TJ Jones.
Yeah, and then one note here, I got an alert from ESPN.com. This is from Michael Rothstein, who covers the Lions for them. This is about Amir Abdullah, who says he feels like, quote, he's turned a corner after his foot injury from last year. And I guess it was today during training camp, Caldwell told him that just to take a break, today, they don't need to risk re-injuring your foot. But he wanted him to take a day off because I think he only played 6 quarters last year and hurt his foot and he was lost for the year.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, and this another quote from Abdullah said, quote, "I feel great, man. I feel great. It's a good feeling. You've done everything you could, in the off-season, turnovers, done just to get back to be ready for your team."
Kudos and suit yourself.
Yep. So, I guess we'll take that as a good sign that he's recovered and just he's ready to go, and hopefully that he doesn't do anything to re-injure that foot again.
That's why we keep our eyes on that. So, that's Lions football. Now we transition to college football and the Michigan Wolverines.
Touchdown, Michigan!
Michigan Wolverines football wide receiver Grant Perry was sentenced to 12 months on probation for resisting a police officer and one misdemeanor count of assault and battery. This is from the Lansing State Journal. come on. That was Friday afternoon when the sentencing took place. It stemmed from an incident outside an East Lansing bar last October. Perry pleaded guilty in June to one count of resisting a police officer, which is a felony. He also pleaded guilty to one misdemeanor count of assault and battery. In exchange, prosecutors dropped 2 counts of misdemeanor, fourth-degree criminal sexual conduct, and an alcohol charge. The incident stems from an October 15th disagreement in East Lansing where a woman accused Perry of grabbing her in a sexual manner outside a bar. Now, Ed Smith and I have discussed that in the recent past. So, Grant Perry got his sentence, but here's more truth to it. Assistant Ingham County Prosecutor Christina Johnson on Friday described Perry's actions as a crime of arrogance, entitlement, and power, though she said she doesn't believe there was a sexual intent in what he did. Interesting. The victim, a Michigan State University student at the time of the incident, told Judge Joyce Dragonchuk that she was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder after the incident. She said, quote, "I was afraid of walking from class to class. I was afraid to enjoy my senior year of college because I felt that any stranger who looked at me and also would do whatever they wanted to me without remorse. I would cry walking from my car to the door of my apartment and have panic attacks when I had plans to leave my apartment," unquote. The State Journal does not typically identify reported victims of sexual assault. Perry is not allowed to consume alcohol during his probation and must stay away from bars or establishments that sell alcohol. He must also serve 60 hours of community service. So that's pretty small. Just 2 days and 2.5 days. Dragonchuk also granted Perry's request to be sentenced under the Holmes Youthful Trainee Act. His convictions will be set aside during probation, and if he successfully completes the terms of his probation, they will be vacated. The court records are sealed unless his HYTA status is revoked. His attorney, Frank Reynolds, said during the hearing that he and his client are fighting to maintain Perry's athletic scholarship at the University of Michigan. If Perry violates the terms of his probation, he would be resentenced and face up to 2 years in prison. Perry spoke briefly during the hearing in Ingham County Circuit Court, apologizing to the victim and to police officers involved in the incident. There's more. Perry told Dragonchuk during the June 28th plea hearing that the incident began when he and his friends tried to cut in line, then got into an argument with the victim. He said, quote, "I proceeded to push her out of my way," unquote. Perry, a junior wide receiver from Royal Oak, also said he tried to wriggle away from East Lansing police when they arrived on the scene. After Perry's initial suspension, the wide receiver was reportedly working out with the team earlier this year. Coach Jim Harbaugh told the Free Press, the Detroit Free Press that is, last week that Perry would continue to work out with the team until his case is resolved. So Jim Harbaugh's trying to work things out here after what went down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember if Perry missed any time last year here away from games. I think he did, but also you mentioned that he's got to walk a pretty fine line, and that if he screws up, then it could be adios.
Yep.
I mean, granted, this situation was not as bad as the situation with the Michigan State players, but again, because this was more, because from what he's saying is that there was a disagreement. He shoved a girl, which I don't condone at all, and he tried to get away from the police, which that in its own right, if you do that, then you're just plain stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think also people will say, "Oh, why did he take a plea deal?" Well, people have to understand how the legal system works. Is that the prosecution in any criminal case, the burden of proof is on them, and if they want to make sure that they can get a sure conviction, they're going to have to possibly make some sacrifices. They'll have to get them to plead guilty to a lesser offense. That's to say, for example, like they'll take charge of felonious assault, which is a 4-year felony in Michigan, and get them to plead guilty to assault and battery, which is a 93-day misdemeanor. That way, hey, you get the conviction, and the guy does his time, and there you go, because something happens where you end up going to trial with it, and he ends up getting off. That's going to kind of make you look bad, like you can't do your job. And, of course, I guess the people who really get the most slack for it are judges, but, again, a judge has to accept a plea bargain. They cannot reject it. The only thing they can reject is a sentence bargain, which, let's say, for a crime the attorneys might work out something, say, we want my client to not get any jail time or anything like this, but a judge can choose to accept or reject that. Now, I also have heard that this was I don't know if this is still the case now, but I think it was probably about like 10 years ago or so, I heard that in Oakland County, they didn't plea bargain. You were going to get basically the maximum, and I don't know how the hell they got away with it.
Yeah. Just like the people in Detroit, in the Detroit area. My God.
You are pathetic!
Yeah.
So, that's out of the way. Now we transition to hockey. The Red Wings have signed 9th overall pick Michael Rasmussen to a 3-year entry-level contract. So, that's just an update for you. Michael Rasmussen was picked 9th after the Red Wings had to settle for the 9th overall pick in the NHL draft lottery earlier this calendar year after they continued to win meaningless games the last season when they should have tanked to the bottom 3. That's it.
Yeah, I'm actually reading the article on NHL.com, and I guess they had the signing was on Saturday, and he didn't play with Team Canada during the World Junior Summer Showcase.
Oops.
So I don't know.
Maybe he didn't make the team.
No, I think he just had the night off because the signing actually took place at USA Hockey Arena in Plymouth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he said that this is what Assistant General Manager Ryan Martin said. He said, quote, he actually signed it back in the rink. So this isn't going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance, signing it on top of a garbage can at the back, but I guess you do what you got to do. And Rasmussen said, quote, I kind of let them and my agents deal with it. They just told me to focus on myself and focus on my training in my summer.
Same thing. Just the same old routine stuff, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like anything out of the ordinary.
Right.
And of course, the reason why he didn't play is he's been
just those irrelevant
injured.
quotes.
Or this is what Team Canada coach Dominique Ducharme said, that he was injured. Obviously, he's not playing as much as he would like and we would like, but we have to be careful. So, I guess it's just nothing out of the ordinary, and I guess he is going to play in the Prospects tournament in Traverse City in September.
Mm-hmm. Early September, that is, or early to mid-September. Training camp for the NHL roster of the Red Wings begins later in September. at Center Ice Arena in Traverse City. Center Ice, spelled Canadian style, Centre. And I've been there before, in the past, many times in the past. And I've collected a lot of autographs. I talked with, I even got my picture taken with Brendan Shanahan.
Yeah. I think it was in the lockout shortened year. They actually had it at USA Hockey Arena back when it was known as CompuWare Arena. And I ended up going there for a day. I was there for the morning session, and while they were skating and doing drills, and then I had a hat that I had gotten somewhere, and I just had a bunch of players sign it, and I think it was actually the first day that Pavel Datsyuk had gotten back from Russia. I had him sign it, I had Zetterberg sign it, I had Babcock sign it, and the funny thing was I had my phone in my jacket pocket. I dropped my phone down to where the players were, and I believe it was Todd Bertuzzi who picked up my phone and gave it back to me.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of cool to get to check that out, and then they had the red and white game that night, so.
I've been to red and white games before.
Yeah, so I was able to go back to that, and I was able to sit next to the glass. That was fun to watch.
Oh yeah, they're always fun to watch, yeah. Of course. Well, or maybe they used to be.
Well, again, this is just it's essentially like a spring game in college football. I mean, it's just a chance for guys to get some game action, a chance to see what some of the guys you didn't hear about, what they can bring to the table, and really means nothing other than bragging rights. So.
All right. Why don't we get to back to the important stuff here and transition to the Pistons here in basketball.
Left sideline three, and he answers.
This is going to be really interesting. The Pistons have shown interest in acquiring Cleveland Cavaliers point guard Kyrie Irving in a trade. Now, we haven't heard any rumors on who it might involve yet, but the thing is, as we recall a couple weeks ago, the Ruben Rodriguez tweet at Ruben Vincent demanding the Pistons to trade Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, and Stanley Johnson to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Kyrie Irving. And Andre Drummond, of course, fired back. And this is why you're typing from a computer and not the general manager, with some emojis topped on it. And Ruben Rodriguez replied back, if you start practicing your free throws, then this conversation might not have been sparked. And of course others reply, and they agree with Ruben Rodriguez. Of course, every single one of them, those replies agree with Ruben Rodriguez. So that this again, no rumors yet on who it might involve, but this might at least help put the puzzle pieces together. As I mentioned off the air.
Yeah, it very well could. And I think it's definitely something that would shake the trade. And does it possibly move? I mean, basically has your backcourt of Kyrie Irving and Avery Bradley, which would be a pretty solid backcourt. Or to begin with, I mean, you get Drummond off the books. So, I mean, I would have to possibly put this in ESPN's NBA trade machine just to see how it would work out. But again, I think it's just something that we're going to have to wait and see for the next couple of weeks. Because Vince says it's a strong possibility Irving gets dealt out in the coming weeks, and of course the Pistons are interested, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
It could happen. Keep your fingers crossed. But speaking of Drummond, got an article from the Detroit Free Press. I still have the Kyrie Irving trade report dug up. Brian Windhorst of ESPN.com mentioned the San Antonio Spurs, the New York Knicks, the Miami Heat, and the Minnesota Timberwolves during a meeting with the Cavaliers officials last month when he first broached the idea of a trade request. Vince Ellis of the Detroit Free Press reporting there's a strong possibility Irving gets dealt in the coming weeks, and the Pistons are interested. The list of potential landing spots for the Irving is seemingly starting to go from the initial 14 group of preferred destinations, including the Pistons, Spurs, Knicks, Heat, and Timberwolves. That's 5, actually, not 4. But meanwhile, Joe Varden of Cleveland.com reported the Cavaliers front office is seeking a veteran starter, a blue chipper on a rookie contract, and a first-round pick in any deal for the point guard. So this doesn't matter. What the Cavaliers want in return doesn't match up to Drummond, Jackson, and Stanley Johnson. None of them, number one, first and foremost, I don't know. Drummond actually was a first-round pick. Actually, but a veteran starter, I'm not sure. They're all three of those guys are young, as far as I'm concerned. A blue chip on a rookie contract. A rookie contract, none of them rookies though. At least one of those match, and that's Andre Drummond. That's the first-round pick from years ago, a few years ago. The Pistons have pieces in a package to match that description. Reggie Jackson and Avila headline their group of veteran guards, and they feature an ample amount of young talent, including Stanley Johnson, Henry Ellenson, and Luke Kennard, their last 3 first-round picks. Whether the Cavs would be interested in a deal highlighted by some of those pieces is unclear, though, and it's unknown whether a move to Detroit would interest Irving, though he does not have a no-trade clause in his contract to block a swap. That's good news. Furthermore, Cleveland owner Dan Gilbert recently said the current expectation is for the team's point guard to show up for the start of training camp late next month, which is August 4th, which is going to be in September. That's next month. This was reported August 4th, 2 days before this episode here. Now let me get to the Andre Drummond. But first off, what are your thoughts penning all this information here?
Honestly, I think that if you want a max contract, you got to have Drummond in any deal. But I mean, who else do you include in there? I mean, I would say possibly the only ones I would not give up at all are Avery Bradley and I would say Keith and who knows. And beyond that, possibly keep Luke Kennard, because he might be a good bench player for you to have. But I mean, everyone else, Reggie Jackson, I think you make available. Stanley Johnson, I think you make him available, and who knows? But I'd say right now, if you want to make a deal and get Kyrie, you got to make them take Drummond, and you throw in anybody else except Bradley and Kennard.
That's a good idea. So, this article headlining Andre Drummond, quote, "It was tough for my family and me to hear those trade rumors." After a sluggish season in the third paragraph where the entire team underperformed, Drummond has been forced to realize he can be traded just like anyone else. The rumors, this is another piece that can fit into the puzzle here. The rumors started about around the February trade deadline and have continued throughout the offseason. This is reported by Vince Ellis. What do you know? Drummond admitted Thursday that going from franchise cornerstone to franchise afterthought bothered him. Drummond said, quote, "I never had to deal with that before. It was tough for my family and me to hear those rumors, but guys making that much money, not having the year they're supposed to have, obviously that's what's going to happen. I've accepted that," unquote. The NBA and National Basketball Players Association, NBPA for short, are conducting a series of fan engagement. That stuff is irrelevant. He's participating in the African game. But all that stuff, he was with his family when he heard that stuff. A temporary respite from the rumor mill. Pistons head coach and president of basketball operations Stan Van Gundy told reporters earlier this offseason that the rumors hurt Drummond, quote unquote. But it appears that Drummond has been reassured that the organization still has confidence he can get his career arc trending back upward. Good luck with that. Drummond said,
I think the only way he gets his career trending back upward is if he does get traded, because I think he could benefit from a change of scenery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Drummond said, quote, "I wasn't playing the way I was supposed to play, and they were looking for a better option, but they still have faith in me and believe that I can still be on this team and get us to where we need to get that down," unquote. Good luck with that, quote Andre. So, there you go. Now we go to other Pistons news. Jason Maxiell, a former Piston, signs a contract with the Pistons to retire as a part of the organization, according to thescore.com, the Associated Press. The team announced the move Friday. Maxiell spent 8 seasons with the Pistons and was part of 3 runs to the Eastern Conference Finals. Detroit general manager Jeff Power, thank you very much, said Maxiell and his representatives reached out to the Pistons about his desire to sign one last contract with the team before retiring. So Maxiell obviously is going to play with the Pistons.
It may just be a deal where he signs like a one-day contract so he can retire a Piston.
Maybe. He's a center.
Yeah, and how much does he have left in the tank though? Because ever since he left, I hadn't heard too much of anything as to where he was playing or what he had done or anything like that.
Oh yeah, good point. Mm-hmm. He was drafted by the Pistons in 2005. This is 12 years apart here at this point of time. And after his 8 seasons with them, he joined Orlando and Charlotte before signing overseas. So that's all the information there is from the Associated Press on thescore.com. So it still no rumors on how long his contract. Still no update on how long his contract is going to be, but good point on the one-day contract stuff. Maxiell is getting old. That's another good point. Kind of like with old veteran players, they can do one-day contracts if they want to before retiring for good. And now for the stuff about Darko Milicic. Chauncey Billups. I got a report from NBCSport.com, Pro Basketball Talk. Chauncey Billups, headline, Chauncey Billups literally had to teach Darko Milicic how to shower. I know, right?
How to take a shower? Look, I'm not trying to knock Darko, but he didn't have access to a shower over in Serbia. Granted, he probably. I can understand he didn't have access to one that would have fit him because, again, he's 7 feet tall and he probably would have had to stand outside, use the hose. But
it
does sound kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, but here's some inside information from Sam Borden of ESPN. Quote, by the time scouts started coming around, Darko saw the NBA as a way out of financial insecurity, of persistent tumult, of Serbia, more than any kind of child fantasy, you nail it on the head, coming true, childhood fantasy coming true. He liked the game enough. Everyone he met was rooting for him to go. It was all right there in front of him, and who hasn't walked through a door simply because it was open? The problem is that wasn't the narrative we expect from foreign basketball players like Darko Milicic. We expect them to love the NBA, to have grown up watching it on choppy internet streams or satellite television, to cherish its players and aspire to its trappings. When Yao Ming came to the NBA from China, he made no secret of his long-time adoration of Arvydas Sabonis and Hakeem Olajuwon, former Houston Rocket. More recently, Kristaps Porzingis, I believe a current New York Knick, a Latvian, made it clear that Dirk Nowitzki was his inspiration, and everyone nodded yes, may I add. So as soon as Darko began to get some attention in the U.S., the expected questions began. Quote, who was your idol? Who did you love to watch? Kevin Garnett, Darko answered. He told everyone that Garnett, a tall power forward with a wingspan wider than a school bus, was his muse. He told local television stations he liked Garnett. He told USA Today he liked Garnett. He told ESPN he liked Garnett, except he had barely seen Garnett play. Quote, Darko says, quote, I just sort of found him and decided he's the one. It seemed like the player I was supposed to like. There's his mistake right there. Darko has to watch the game. He should have watched the game more often to learn how to play more consistently. And may I continue here? Darko would go home to shower after practices or games instead. This is the main point here. Instead of staying in the locker room to clean up. He didn't realize that in America, the players all showered together. So Chauncey Billups said, quote, so I had to teach Darko, like, no, when we're done playing, when we're done practicing, you put your towel on, you go get in the shower. That's what we do here. Quote, and the last quote right here, there was wall punching, there was also drinking, and Darko began showing up to practice still tipsy after an overnight bender. He said, quote, I just wouldn't sleep, unquote. Wow. Talk about a career just falling apart just like that early on. And here's Darko Milicic right now. NBA bust Darko Milicic from ESPN.com finds success back home in Serbia. Number one, he doesn't mind talking about being a total failure. The 10 reasons why from Sam Borden. Number two, he no longer believes that because of a combination of peer pressure and societal customs, he should lie about his dream. He no longer believes that he should lie about his dream. Number three, oh boy, where did number three go? Okay, his typical evening routine, that's number three, no longer includes damaging his own home. I'm not going to read the entire summary. I'll just read the 10 things here. Number four, he knew when to quit. Number five, when he goes drinking now, he uses his hands most of the time. Now, there's a little inside information there. In April 2015, Darko and his friends were at a party. There was beer. There was singing. There was lots of shouting and laughing and men raising their arms in the air, all pretty standard. But at one point, Darko got up near the front of the crowd and shirtless, inserted a bottle into his mouth. Whoa.
Definitely a party animal.
Oh my gosh.
And why do you get the hell out of here?
Number 6, he kept the cars. Chauncey Billups taught Darko how to drive, in addition to teaching Darko how to shower. Number 7, he didn't go broke, thankfully. That's one of the important values of life. Number 8, he's able to say, quote, "This is a funny story," as opposed to viewing it as a metaphor for his entire life. He doesn't take that seriously. That's good. Number 9, he accepts responsibility. And number 10, a Serbian monk says so. So all these 10 reasons show why Darko is a very thick-skinned person, even though he was not that good of a basketball player in the NBA. If you narrow that down.
I mean, I will give him credit for not pissing away all his money like many others had done.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Boban Marjanovic, though, is Serbian too, but we don't know any inside truth about Boban Marjanovic. Right now we just care about what he can do, what he can and can't do on the court. Defensively, kind of slow. Sometimes he can play defense, but most importantly, offensively, he can roll, baby. He can shoot free throws too. He can rebound. He can score in the post.
Yeah.
So that's the whole story. So that is all the material that we covered here on this episode. Now we go to the 2 segments. First off, 5 questions. Are you ready, Frank?
Let's do it.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1. Can the Tigers still tank back down in the standings enough in time for Chris Ilitch to sell the team in order for the Tigers to clean entire house?
I think absolutely they can, but will they? That remains to be seen.
Wait and see approach.
Yeah, I think absolutely they can. It's just a matter of will they? Because can they and will they are 2 different things.
Yeah. Keep in mind, even though they're the 3rd worst team in the American League, they're still 5.5 games back of the wild card, and they're still in this thing. And that's what we hate to see with Brad Ausmus and Avila and Chris Hill.
Yeah, I think it just shows how weak the American League is this year.
Yeah, that gets the Tigers organization carried away by this race. That's what I was trying to point out.
Next question.
Question number 2. Does changing Nick Castellanos' defensive position make the Tigers better? I say a big fat no.
And I say the same big fat no, because he's an error machine at third base in the fashion of Brandon Inge. Where else are you going to put him where he's going to make the team better? He can't play in the outfield. You're not going to put him anywhere in the middle of the infield. You're not going to put him at first. There's no way I could see him at catcher. So,
or pitcher. Or
yeah.
Most definitely pitcher. He's never pitched before and he never will. But most importantly, he can't field the ball cleanly on the mound either.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think it's going to have to be a point where the team has to cut ties with him.
Yeah. Or send him down, back down in the minor leagues. Because no team wants a player that commits at least 15 errors per season, for God's sake. Are you kidding me? That's another point I'd like to bring up.
Next question.
Question number 3. Do the Tigers still need Justin Verlander? They're going to keep him anyway, but do they need him?
Depends what they really need him for. They're nowhere close to winning a World Series, so it's really not going to do any good to let him just rot there and he ends up going through his career without winning a ring. I think I still say next year is the year he gets traded somewhere to a contending team. Who that is, no idea, because we don't know who's going to be a World Series contender next year.
The real question is, can any team afford to pay Verlander $28 million per with a $22 million option in 2020? That's the more important thing.
I would say right now, no, and the Tigers will have to retain some salary.
Probably not at all.
Hopefully, it'll be a matter of where they only have to retain.
Can only hope,
no more than 25 cents on the dollar.
But I believe Verlander's going nowhere until after 2020.
Okay.
Because still, nobody can afford it at all. Not even the Los Angeles Dodgers or the New York Yankees, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Next question.
Question number 4. Are the Lions and quarterback Matthew Stafford getting closer to agreeing on their contract extension? But like I said before, of course they can. We haven't heard an update on how close they've come, but we can at least predict or think or assume that they are getting closer. But I'll let you go first.
I mean, honestly, for me, it's hard to say because we haven't heard that they're getting close, and you might hear snippets say, "Oh, they're not close" from third parties, but at the same time, we haven't heard anything saying like neither. It's not a matter of two sides just can't seem to sit down and talk it out. So, I mean, honestly, I think it's just a matter of they're kind of waiting to see how the Kirk Cousins situation plays out, and I think it possibly becomes a matter of Stafford ends up signing a franchise tag because he'll be able to make more money that way.
Yeah, that would be it. But as of right now, I'm gonna have to say no on this one because we haven't heard any rumors of them getting closer. They're not getting closer any time at this point. So no, my answer is no.
Next question.
I'm going to have to say no as well.
Finally, question number 5. Can the Pistons trade Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, and Stanley Johnson to the Cleveland Cavaliers for point guard Kyrie Irving?
Oh, how I would love for that to happen. But I think it's really a matter of what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. I say it might take somebody different than that, but the only guys who I say are off the table are Luke Kennard and Avery Bradley. Everybody else, you're on the block, and Cleveland can pick from that selection.
As long as it's Andre Drummond, who was a first round pick.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
That's the most important thing. I'd say the Pistons trade at least Andre Drummond. I think they can.
Yeah.
This is not a question of will. It's just a question of can they. So that wraps up our 5 questions segment. And to our entire audience, if you want to answer those 5 questions, just replay that segment portion of this episode and answer them the best you can without going out of line. Now the other segment, What's Your Grade?
Pencils down, everyone. It's time to find out what's your grade.
Got 2 events on the line here. First and foremost, how do you grade the Justin Wilson, Alex Avila trade for Jeimer Candelario and Isaac Paredes?
Well, I definitely grade it better than the J.D. Martinez trade. But I still think they possibly could have done better, and they ended up going to a team that had depleted their farm system for Jose Quintana. But since it wasn't a complete disaster of a trade, and it sounds like Candelario is going to be with the team this week, and he was ranked in the top 100, I'm going to give him a C+.
All right. I'm going to give them, just to be fair, a mid-range C. Like you pointed out, the farm system's still depleted. But like we also pointed out, Jeimer Candelario is ranked 92nd going into at mid-season point in the top 100 prospects as of that point. That's the only top 100 prospect that we got in that trade, as far as we know. And the other event, Tigers placing starting pitcher Justin Verlander on revocable waivers before he clears them. What's your grade on that, Frank?
I definitely found that interesting thing because I figured that if anything, he'd get moved before the deadline, and I didn't really know too much about the revocable waivers until now. And I guess he cleared them, so I guess that meant that nobody really wanted to take on his contract for nothing and not have to give up anything in return. And then, of course, he clears, and that means he can still be dealt afterwards. Now, as a matter of does he get dealt, I still say no. I think it'll be next year because, again, his contract is just too hefty. So, I mean, it's really hard for me to grade this because it really didn't result in them losing him for nothing. But at the same time, it really, I don't think it's going to result in anything in terms of a trade, at least for this season. So, I mean, I'm just going to have to give it a C- at best. I mean, it was kind of there. I mean, it didn't really result in anything.
Just to be fair here, I'm going to have to give that an incomplete with a subject to change later on in the future, because still it's a wait-and-see approach. Like you said, Verlander could be traded next year after clearing revocable waivers. And to be honest with you, I've never heard of revocable waivers either, but this is something that interests us and something that we can use if we're the general managers here.
Yeah, but I mean, I think mine, I'm going to have to put subject to change as well. But I think I only just gave it the grade I did because, for one, I didn't really understand how it worked until now. But at the end, it didn't really result in anything. I mean, it didn't result in them losing him for nothing, but it also didn't result in a trade once he cleared.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. So that's our what's your grade segment. So for our audience, if they have grades for each event, post them in the comment bank below this episode. Please don't go out of line. So that puts a wrap on episode 276 of Spreaker Sunday. Before we sign off, we want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because we want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast Organization is boosting its posts on its Facebook page, and searching for local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET, at Sports Radio Det, and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section, or email co-owners Roger Castillo and Carlos Peligro at rajcast81@gmail.com. Also, like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcast available on iTunes and Podbean. Frank, thanks very much for your help. Hopefully Ed Smith returns next week or the week thereafter, and hopefully you'll join in as well.
Oh, yes. I mean, Ed, if you're listening to this, Hope to have you back, brother. Looking forward to having some great discussion with you.
Absolutely. So take care, Frank. I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Talk to you next week, Taylor.
Yep, thanks. So I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips and Frank Vajcner at Frank_Vajcner at Frank_Vajcner, VAJCNER. Like and share the Michigan Sports Truth Facebook page. Join its Facebook group. We'll talk to you next week on episode 277. Thanks very much for listening and downloading and sharing. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appetit.